Hi, this is Greg Hildebrandt. I've been a professional artist for 62 years. I've done a lot of artwork in that time, and I'm still just trying to get it right.
Hey, Greg, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing okay, still trying to get it right.
Every day, man. Every day, trying to
Every
get right,
day,
right?
every day it's a struggle to get it right. I think everybody's
Got
trying to
Gene
get it
on
right, right? I
everybody.
think. I
Yeah.
think.
How you doing, Gene?
I'm good. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to
Gene's
make
doing
sure that the volume is right. So you can hear, right?
Yep. I think everything is good and golden. We've got some people tuning in.
Make sure
So
make sure
welcome
they can
everybody coming
hear.
in.
Make sure the people tuning in can hear.
Okay. So if everybody can hear, okay, please, someone just type into the chat you can hear me. Or if you can't hear, you won't know to type into the chat. So I guess we'll be stuck. So
Uh,
anyway, man, I gotta say, I'm looking at 21st century behind you there. It looks absolutely impressive. Uh, Place behind you to get a true size scale. Uh,
yeah, and it
Miguel, I hope I'm pronouncing you right, Miguel. Thank you for chiming in and letting us know that everything's good.
here's the
Appreciate
whole
it.
thing too. It goes, so that I can't. It doesn't all fit on the screen, but that's I think it's probably 5 feet tall. And these things
Yeah,
work better bigger, obviously. I think when as an
I agree that it creates more of an impact.
yeah
You know, there's something about when that gets framed and then gets hung up in a gallery or wherever, and you have to walk up to it and it's imposing over you.
yeah
Um, it gives a different feeling to where if you're just looking at it like a 1 foot painting or even
right
on your phone,
right.
there's just this sheer scale of it helps deliver the impact.
And just talking technically, I mean, painting is more fun and loose. In other words, you can be if you come in from a distance, it looks tight and detailed. You get close, and it's very loose and abstract. It's very scrubby and all. And I like that
Yeah,
with that kind of combination.
yeah, absolutely. I got to spend some time looking at the scan of it up close and just where the big broad strokes. And I know that this is not what we were talking about, saying where we were going to go with the conversation, but we've talked many times about style,
Yep.
creating a style and just doing it. And when I was looking at that piece, really zoomed in up close, um, I was like, okay, that's one of the things that all artists do differently that helps define that style is the way they lay down the brush stroke.
Yeah.
The brush stroke. I mean, you're gonna put certain things in certain places to make it read as if the light is hitting it and all of that. But yeah, just the confidence of the brush strokes
Right.
uh,
Yeah.
helps determine style
Yeah.
very much.
Absolutely. It's yeah. That's quite a bit of it. And the move. You're thinking of movement. Why I'm putting it down. I mean, anybody painting so-called realistically is thinking of that shape. So that's influencing you, the thought and the feeling that
Yep.
you want to convey of the actual shape of the object is the way you're applying the paint. Also, sometimes
Yep.
it's good to go anti that, against that line. Sometimes, to then more what abstractedly I don't know what term to use exactly, and that works. And it's all a learned thing. I mean, it takes years and years and years to figure it out. If there is a figuring of it out, I mean, each painting I do, I mean, I think it's brand new. You have a certain, we've talked about this. I've got a lot of information that I've gathered in my up in the backpack of my head, you know,
Hmm.
and that all comes out. But still, it's always brand new. You know, you're
Yeah.
still starting at ground zero. You know, it's like when
That's-
John Steinbeck said that after they tore Grapes of Wrath apart, believe it or not, his novel, the critics
Mhm.
destroyed it. You know, it's like, and I remember he responded to that. Some student asked him some questions about his response to that. And he said they don't get it because it's like every time you start something new, all the horizons recede. It's way on the distance all over again. And you got to start trying to find your way towards it. You know,
Yes.
even a writer of that, you know, what,
Yeah.
excellence, magnificence, you know,
Yeah.
you're starting over again all the time.
So Carrie Sue asked the question, what kind of huge paper or canvas is that? That is
Canvas. Yeah, it's a, what they call the portrait finish. They've got different textures, different weaves. They've got rougher weaves that are much more textury. This is a fine weave. You know, I like it like that. And you can get even finer if you want it to get even smoother because there's a texture to this, you know, like a cloth canvas surface. But if you want to say get this very tight and more noodly, you can sand it because these the canvas I get or Gene gets for me is pre-treated with acrylic already, white
Gesso.
Yeah. And so
Gesso.
you can sand it down and even get it very, very smooth, almost like you're working on a board, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, canvas. Which started in Venice.
We get a production question from Alexander Davenport. So we get a bunch of people chiming in saying hello, how are you, Greg, and all that.
Hello.
Okay, so Alex, I'm going to ask Greg this question, but I'm going to give the caveat. This is going to be all down to different artists and experience level. But so he's asked, he had to paint 44 dragons. I actually remember you mentioned this several weeks ago, Alexander, and that you're finally finishing up. And it's like, how long do you think it would take you to paint 44 unique illustrations? And he feels like it took him too long.
I've painted more than 44 in a row, believe me. You know?
Yeah. So, okay. So he's actually saying, sorry, his thing came in twice. We didn't see it twice. But I'm going to say, if you had a deadline and you hit the deadline, then you painted it fast enough.
There you go. I'm not sure what. Yeah. The question wasn't really all that clear to me. Like in terms of what's the actual question again?
I think he was wondering how long it would take you to paint 44 unique illustrations.
Depends on the complexity of the illustration. I can't possibly answer that. You know.
Yeah, it's so.
What's in the picture?
Relative to the individual. Like, what do the backgrounds look like?
Is it a bunch of buildings? Or is it just a big head? I mean, God, a bunch of big heads, but close-ups, that's fast.
Yeah.
Buildings?
Yeah.
No. That's a lot longer. A lot longer. So it's
the
all...
other comparative thing is the level of experience and the artist. Because I know for me, 44 it would take me a lot longer to do 44 illustrations than it would for you to do 44 illustrations. And that is just because the level of experience is just so
you're at it
vastly different. And painting in a not the same style, but painting in a similar genre manner.
Right.
So Alexander, as long as you hit the deadline and you got paid reasonably well,
that's it.
Don't worry about it. Speed will come.
You did good. And of course, at the end of that, in 44 paintings, I mean, you're not going to be able to look back at them all and say, "Wow, that's that I really hit it with that one." I mean,
yeah.
What the hell Mel Brooks said, he always hoped for 50% of what he put up on the screen to take. It's like throwing whatever at the wall and see what sticks. Some of
Yeah.
it does, some of it doesn't. You're speeding through it. So look at comics, for God's sakes. I mean, it's amazing that anything ends up good. The speed of which people have worked over the last,
Oh yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it's
I
amazing.
mean, you take someone like like Frazetta. He said that he did a lot of his paintings overnight.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of what we see of his work has been reworked.
Mm-hmm.
Because he would put them
Get it
out and they
back and
would
work
get
on it.
published. They'd get published on a book cover one way, and then he would rework them, and
Yeah.
then they kind of become known in the ether as looking a different way. So
Yeah, I
he
don't know.
made that claim a lot, but that's a little.
I don't know what the hell different. The only people there always used to be that big question like, how long did that take you to do? Like, what the hell difference does it make how long it took me to do? The only person that would mean anything to with me is me. Why does it mean anything to you? In other words,
Well, I would contradict you there,
okay,
and that your business partner behind you would say that it's very important to know exactly how long it's going to take, so she knows how much to charge for a job.
well, that's the pragmatic economics of it. I'm saying though, I mean, over the
Yeah.
years, there, people in the business, artists, other artists, younger artists, always, how long did that take you? Like, why? What are you asking me? What are you asking me the question for? What if I said it took a day? Now what? What if I said it took a week? Now what? What difference does it make?
Yeah.
It's like that doesn't matter how long it takes. You know,
Yeah.
it only means, like you say, it only means something. If you're in the business of making a living off of art, it only means something in that respect of like how much money you could make.
Yeah.
Yep. That's what that means.
Yeah. So,
But that
along
thing about Frazetta though, that was always a kind of a, wasn't it? Seemingly to me, and I don't know. I knew Frank; he was a great guy. I loved him. But that sort of like thing was to say, he was always playing that routine of like I always wanted to be a baseball player, and I do this. I never really wanted to do this, but I do it, and I put it off, and when it gets down to it, then I do it overnight. Kind of like, I'm not sure what that's about, but
yeah, all due respect, obviously, master.
oh my God,
You knew him. You were friends with him.
yes.
So, but some of those comments come off as either on one, I'm trying to dismiss it as less than I wanted to be a baseball player, or as a little bit of machismo.
I think that's it too. And then of course
he knew he was good.
and he
He
always
knew he was good.
yeah, he always said too he never posed anybody because there was this whole big rhetoric about that's too stiff if you use models. Well, there's photos of him posing for Christ's sake, And now, but I remember when I taught for a while at Joe Cubert's school, and that would be the issue that I'd be dealing with. The young artists coming in, that was this, I could do it. I don't need models. Boom, And then they'd ask me. Some of the guys would be doing a sketch or something, and I'd say, "What do you think?" And I said, "It looks like you need a model." But the idea that you think that you can do it better than nature can.
Yeah.
Nature's like this fantastic, but no, I don't need nature. I just need me, and I can just do it. Well, I think it's foolish. I don't know what track we're on here, but it doesn't matter.
That's okay.
Yeah, here's a sketch that I did. Thinking of, there's myself as a little kid drawing a sketch. This is Living with Fear comics. There's several events going on in the background over time, and it seems like it never ends. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
This is the thing. We were talking about this last week. This painting, it's this series of the toy ray guns and the skeleton, and the idea. As I was working on this one, I'm listening. I think that I mentioned this. We talked about this last week. I was listening to a lot of King Crimson, progressive rock group for younger people that may not know who that is. English, first album, 1968, I think, right?
Yes. Yep.
And I was playing it a lot, and it just had this whole, like the opening line of Epitaph, one of the signature songs in there is, the wall on which the prophets wrote is cracking at the seams, and it seems like, and then on that same album, this piece shows up, and I'd already started this thing, and on that same album, and I titled this 21st Century Man.
Yep.
And on the same.
Let me get a correction there real quick. Is this painting called 21st Century or
21st
Century Man?
21st Century. But then as I worked on it, I'm thinking, well, this is 21st Century Man. I thought, well, 21st Century started with, these are Buck Rogers pistols. Buck Rogers' full title back in the day in the comics and then in the serials and all the other stuff. Buck Rogers of the 21st Century. So I thought, well, 21st Century, that's what I want to call this. Drop the Buck Rogers because I don't want to localize it. You know what I mean? In a time frame, I want to bring it to relevance, across time. So I decided to call it 21st Century. So I'm listening to King Crimson, the album, and what comes up? 21st Century Schizoid Man.
Yes. Yep.
And I'm saying, whoa, holy shit, this is like freaking kind of like synchronistic or something. I find that kind of stuff interesting,
Yeah, I do too. And to go along with that, when we were talking last week, and you said 21st century, and we started talking about the technology, how it has connected all of us, but also how it has exposed a lot of hate and ugliness.
Yeah.
That song 21st Century Schizoid Man popped into my head.
Yeah.
And I was singing it during the whole, and, it was on repeat loop in my head as well. And it's such an apt title, and so Greg, I'm going to ask you this question before we move on. We've got a couple more, some technical questions coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to handle some technical questions before we get into the root of what we were going to talk about with what's the role of artists in society, or do you just want to get into our conversation, man?
Hey, you're the director right now.
Okay. Well,
you make a choice.
Well,
I'll go along with anything. Say I'm fine with anything.
Yeah, we got several people all in, and hey, we put out the call for people to chime in and join into the conversation, and they're commenting a lot and asking a lot of questions. So I don't want to ignore
right. We don't want to do that.
Anybody as we get into this conversation. So let's just clear up a quick few.
Okay.
I think Miguel asked if it was safe to touch the painting with your bare hand because he saw you rubbing.
Oh God, yeah.
The acrylic.
This is acrylic.
Yeah.
This stuff is people ask once, how do you clean them? And Gene, somebody asked Gene, how do you clean the painting? 409. That's all. And then what? This stuff holds up very. I think Bob McCall, when he did the Space Museum art, I don't know if it's still there. I think he was one of the great illustrators, Robert McCall. Incredible space stuff he used to do.
Yep. Oh yeah.
He researched all the possible medium, and he came up with acrylic being potentially the longest lasting. How he arrived at that, I'm not sure. Yeah, this stuff will last forever.
Yeah. And
Come on, you got one word for you. It's plastic.
It's plastic. Yeah. So I think because he said would it destroy the varnish. So varnish is something typically you put on oil painting.
Yeah, well, people like it. Some people think that the painting should shine. I mean, one guy, he potentially bought a painting, we shipped it to him, and he said, it doesn't shine. I thought, well, it was a car, and a girl in a car. And I thought, well, maybe he means there's not enough shines. I didn't paint enough shines on the car. No. He meant the surface didn't shine like it wasn't varnished. So he sent it back. He didn't want it. And I thought, what the hell? I mean, to me.
That's such a weird.
It's
such a weird thing.
varnish is a strange thing. You don't need it to preserve it. So so
Yeah.
the next decision you make is because you want it to be shiny. Now, why you would want
Yeah,
that,
now
I
I
don't
can
know.
understand over oils, like if you use like a lot of linseed oil or mineral spirits in your oil paint, it will it'll dull the paint down, right? So then you get a very uneven
Yeah,
surface. When you
yeah.
varnish it, the varnish smooths it out.
Well, varnish not increases intensity of value and color also. Like these darks would even go darker if
Yeah.
anything shiny. If you take a Krylon fixative and spray many coats on a fixative, it increases the intensity of the contrast. And that's fine if you want that. But then again, too, it gets very shiny, so you got to be careful about lighting it. How the hell do you light it? You get all these reflections on it and everything. I find that very disconcerting. You know.
Yeah.
But
And
anyway,
then
that's it.
yeah. So another comment, just a quick thing. Miguel again always loved the pulp magazine-ish quality to your lighting and everything.
Oh
And
yeah, that stuff was
that's
very
kind of a big
influential.
that's a big part of this current series is that
Yeah,
that pulp kind of look.
yeah, those old.
And then last technical question, Greg, and then we're going to move on to what we
Okay.
signed on to talk about. And this is okay. So, Greg, quick question about lighting. When you have the reflected light, say is like the blue light in your painting, do you use a blue light when you're taking your reference photos?
This one I did. Normally, many paintings that I've done, illustrations that I've done, I don't need the colored lights because I decided I'm going to invent the color of the lighting myself when I paint the picture. So I just light it with. I use photo floods. If I get models, I like regular tungsten, photo floods, and light it that way. But these, I've used these simple lighting. I mean, especially with these, and I don't even use a real camera anymore. I use the thing that everybody uses because the quality of the images is outstanding on these little cell things, and
Yep.
and you can they can those goddamn things invent light where there is no light. So you don't really need bright photographic lights anymore. This was lit with one of those party lights you buy at the hardware store. You know what I'm saying? Bought
Yep.
one of those blue lights. I bought a reddish orange light from the back, and the light from below, which is this color here, that's just a 50-watt light bulb down low from the front. But yeah, I did use colored lights for this and for the other one.
So clearly, in the past, you use regular lights so that you can make up your color.
Right.
That seems to be the most efficient way. For example, like you're doing 100 paintings for a Marvel masterpiece.
Yep.
You're not going to have time necessarily to get green lights, yellow lights, pink lights, magenta lights, and all that.
Right.
You got to be able to do that. But did you find any advantage to having a blue light to do this? And
Oh,
is there a scenario moving forward where you would say, you know what, no, in this situation, I need a colored light,
well,
or
yeah,
it was just
yeah,
alone?
possibly. There is no is about anything. You know what I'm saying? I take it now from picture to picture. I'm doing a layout now for. I'm doing a comic cover for Mark Medney, who's heavy metal, and he's created a character. He's got a comic book going, called and I've decided, like there's the chief power object is this green glowing thing, and she's reaching towards it, and there's a bunch of other elements in the picture, but I decided that I just pulled a little model out that I had in a figure that's got nothing to do with the figure that I'll use, but I decided to just kind of like light it with these lights to see what the hell, to make sure I can see how much green light and where to position my key light that's going to show the true color of the character and the costumes, and where to position the green light just to show me where the green light will hit. And it's useful and helpful. I think it speeds things up in a way. Cool. It speeds it up for you once you get down to this now. Let me see where, who, how, what. There it is. You can kind of look and see roughly in your photo that you've taken what's going on. So, yeah, I could see that I might use it again. I might not use it again. It doesn't matter. Whatever happens with the next image.
Got you. Okay. So now we're going to progress forward into the topic we said we were going to talk about, which is the role of the artist in today's society. Now, before we get too deep into that, I want to actually take a step back in time a little bit, because I don't, just to clarify to everybody watching this now in the future, before you moved into illustration and all of that, you were an activist.
Yeah.
You were very much an activist, starting with in your first job at Jam Handy's painting cells, you were working on films about world hunger. When you were doing documentary films for the Catholic Church, you were going to Africa, South America.
Yes.
You were boots on the ground.
Yes. I was a very naive kid from the east side of Detroit, and I was born in '39, so I grew up in Detroit, the city itself, all through the '40s, into the '50s, '54 when I started high school. And my parents moved to Rochester, Michigan, which is 20 miles north of the city. And so yeah, I was very naive. I was very provincial, raised in a kind of a very small, close Catholic environment. I didn't know anything about other religions or other races, nationality. Well, nationalities, yes. The nationalities they were all European, though. On the block that I lived, it was a Belgian, German, Italian, first, second, third generation. Working class world, which is great. It was fantastic. As a kid, I remember that. I don't know no concept of the actual workings and the prejudices of the city, which reflected the whole damn country. Really, Detroit was so racist in terms of its. There was a riots in the Second World War. What, 42, 43? I think like 40 something people got killed. It was some crazy white people that moved into the African American community and started something, and then it expanded. Oh my God, it was horrendous. I didn't know that as a kid. So they were bigger than there was more death than the actual rioting of the '60s. Then later on, in the '67.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know that. I didn't know all these worlds. I wasn't raised with it. I was raised in my parents, my mother particularly, raised Tim and me with keeping us kids as long as possible. Just, to stay. And I love that. I respect that. I admire that. In that she's the one that actively pursued our using our imaginations. She said the most valuable thing you possess is your imagination, and she would really actively work on helping us to expand that. Staying within this closed area. But then once.
No. Go ahead.
Then
you were going to finish what I was going to ask.
Then by '55, though, when Rosa Parks refused to move to the back of the bus and the bus boycott started, then I became aware of civil rights, and I knew people who marched with her back then. I didn't. I was still a kid. I was still just beginning high school. It was 1955, my second year of high school. And so by that point, I was totally immersed in animation and fantasy and science fiction. That's where I lived, being aware of all the world. And I remember I started to become to an awareness. I remember the first movie I saw, and this is freaking amazing, the first film that Hollywood made that showed the indigenous peoples of the Americas as human beings was Broken Arrow. It was 1950 with James Stewart as a scout and who marries a Native American, even though the Native Americans weren't played by them in the film, but nonetheless, Jay Silverhill's dead. He would play Geronimo. He played Tonto, in the TV series. But Jeff Chandler played Cochise, and then Deborah Paget played this girl that the Jimmy Stewart character marries, based on real people, real events. That's the first time they portrayed, look it up, the very first time they portrayed Native Americans as human beings. Up to that point, they were monstrous savages, which of course, when you go back, if anybody's read the book that I challenged them to read, The American Holocaust, you'll find out of that conversation that they were the savage, monstrous, evil, wild people started by the Spaniards in the 50s, after Columbus came, and then carried on by the British and the Puritans and everything else. That's who they were. So that conversation worked over hundreds of years. I'm finding all this out much later now. You get me? I didn't know this as a kid, none of that. But I had this sympathy. Once I saw that movie, so I was 11 years old. First of all, I fell in love with Deborah Paget in the film. That's number one, especially with this beautiful white buckskin clown dress that or whatever it was that she wore when they got married in the film, and that was very emotional, very moving, and very touching. And then the conclusion of the film is horrendous, and that moved me. Like as a kid, I saw what that you'd see. I go to the movies and see these portrayals of them as, oh my God, if one of them ever gets a hold of your woman, you better shoot her first of all. This kind of shit. It was in the fucking movies in Hollywood, coming out of Hollywood. Yeah. So that's permeating everybody and creating this whole atmosphere, perpetuating the lie. We all know about lies. The lie of the 1500s and the 16th and the 1700s. Anyway, so then, like I said, in '55, in the Civil Rights Movement, in Dr. Martin Luther King, and I'm aware of it. And then these movies that I'm starting to be aware of. Now, Hollywood's starting to do some. Don't get me wrong. Hollywood does some great movies and relevant films. Stanley Kramer and whatnot. And I'm starting to open my eyes up to all that stuff. Well, then I started at this Jam Handy organization. I worked on a ship, a film called Technique for Life. It was about a hospital ship going around to the impoverished nations, and I became aware even more so. Then I came to work in New York for Bishop Fulton J. Sheen, who hired my brother and me to make films on world hunger, where I was there. I finished one film off for him that he already started, and then did another one called The 30th Parallel, where he arbitrarily drew a line around the 30th parallel, like, and all the wealthy nations above that line and all the impoverished nations are below it, if you measure it that way. And I use that as a device to sort of like contrast the haves and the have-nots. And that really was mind-boggling to me, because I didn't go out and shoot anything yet, but I was working with these photo services, Black Star, Magnum, and getting supplies from and just becoming aware of what the hell is going on in the world, and totally unaware that 2/3 of the people were going to bed starving every night. I'm sure it's more now, probably, in these figures. And so I becoming totally mind-boggled, and I proceeded, and finally I made a film, which he said. Then he said, go to Tim and me, boys, go to South America and film poverty. It was just directed to Tim and me in the office. And so the people in the office then set up this arrangement for us to go to Colombia, South America, headquartered. There was a film institute there in Bogota, the capital. They were making educational films for the people, and we landed there, and then we started to go over the whole country. And I didn't speak Spanish, so they always had an interpreter with us. And that was it. I was not the same person when I went back. I basically lost my religion at that point, which I was a Catholic. When I saw the extreme difference in the haves and the have-nots, there it was so the wall here with the busted glass and the barbed wire, and that side's the oligarchy, the ruling class. On this side, people living in abject misery and poverty, cardboard shacks, open, no plumbing, overwhelmingly, horrendously, inundatingly monstrous. And I was filming all this. I almost passed out when I got out of the car. We got our equipment. I looked out and stepped into this, and it was like, unless you're there, you've never seen it before. You almost pass out from the horror, the grief, the misery that you're all of a sudden witnessing. That flipped me around. Then I was working in this one barrio, which they were people would organize in the country because they were living in misery and poverty out there. they'd get in these groups and move into the city and take over a land that was not occupied and start these shacks, and you literally wake up. And that's what this one was that we were filming in. I was filming with this family for a couple of weeks, just their whole routine. And then in that particular barrio, there was a Peruvian priest who was incredible. He was a fantastic man, who had started his own dispensary, not because of his religious order. They had nothing to do with it. They didn't care. He started this, and he became our kind of like interpreter and showing us all around. And we're in this barrio, and right up these mountains, we're the foothills of the Andes, and up the mountainside, there's a wealthy, for the oligarchy, on that side of the wall, a wealthy girls' school with all these girls in their Catholic uniforms and the nuns looking down at us. And this Peruvian priest said, "You know what those people up there think of these people?" He said, "They're animals. They're subhuman. They're not human beings." And he said, "Okay, follow me." We walked out of the bar, down maybe a block, 2 blocks, 3, turn a corner, and he shows us this magnificent palace that was built like in the 1600s, 1700s. It was the papal nuncio's residence. And he stood there, this priest, pointed at that, pointed back to the favela, to the barrio, pointed back. So that was it for me, and I became, up here, everything just flopped. By the time I got back, and that became my obsession to bring Americans to an awareness of what the bishop, what he was trying to do, bring Americans to an awareness of what the reality of the world conditions are, for whatever end. I mean, for whatever you would do with that, then, however you would then, whatever choices you would make to, do what you could do or whatever, live your life or what the hell ever. And we were showing this footage to him. He was certainly not unaware of any of this. He was told much more for years. But we're just running the rough footage after we got back, and we're sitting in this conference room with the projector and the bishop and several of the people that worked there in the office, his secretary and everything. And he slams his fist on this glass-covered table. He says, "We are a trained priests of military taxes. Go down there and take the land away from the rich and give it to the poor." Now, he wasn't advocating any kind of a policy. I don't want anybody to think that. He certainly was a man who would never go against the rules of Rome at all. But he had a social mind that was very much Jesus Christ. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And so there, I did all that, and I was very much aware of that. That never left me. That's all part of me. That's not something that disappears from me. To say nothing then of the war in Vietnam and all the hell the fury that caused, and the divisions and everything. And I was in the Army, so I enlisted in the Army back in, right in the last year of high school, and served 8 years. I enlisted in the reserve. I put 6 months active duty, and then the rest, 3.5 years in the active reserve, and the rest standby reserve. And I never was in combat. I was between Korea and Vietnam. People have asked me later, would you have gone if they called you? Of course I would have. The closest I ever got to it was the Cuban Missile Crisis. In Cuba, Castro and Khrushchev and Kennedy, and our unit said, "Go home, pack your duffel bag," which we all did, and left it by the door, ready to be called any second. And I would have gone. Whatever, that would have been it for me. So that was before the days of hell no, I won't go. Of the 60s, the anti-war movement and everything. But yet I got involved in that because I was I got very much after Bishop Sheen and all that. My views had gotten very much towards nonviolence. Not anti-soldier, not anti-military, nothing like that. It's those who create the conditions that cause the military, that cause human beings to have to go and fight out there and kill one another. It's those who invent all that and what the reasons are. God knows. And so I got all involved in that. And Keith, are you still there? Keith? Gene? Well, Keith has apparently left the planet for a moment, and I'm not sure why, but I'm assuming that I'm still live here. giving you my whole career path. Keith had a whole plan to where to take this, and I'm not sure where it was, but that I guess it had to do with art. He disappeared there for a moment, but I was kind of trying to make a segue on my own into what the conversation was really leading up to was what's the purpose of art in the midst of all that?
Yes. Okay.
Well,
So
I was making movies, and indeed, it was art. Granted, they were documentary. I was trying to really show the reality of of what was going on the planet. So that was right. But once the bishop was booted out of the office because, in a nutshell, he was just too socially committed, and they moved him out and brought in a regime that was completely the opposite of him. They announced to Tim and me, not everybody's for Bishop Sheen. And they were politically, ideologically, spiritually, sociologically, they were completely on the opposite end of the pole. So needless to say, I didn't get along with them. And in any event, I did go to, the head guy said, I'm going to Ghana, West Africa, and first I'm going to Rome, and I would like you to come and film the interviews in Rome. Even though he knew where I was at and Tim was at, more me than Tim, I guess. And he still, all right, well, this is my chance, his chance to kind of like bring me back into the fold or something, I think. So I went to, this is going on for quite a while. Is this too long, Keith?
no, I think this is an important foundation with where we're going, because you've established a couple things that I find incredibly important for the conversation we're about to have. Is that there is a difference between supporting and wanting social justice and also supporting the military and supporting the country and what we do. And I feel like in a lot of conversations today, again, in social media, in regular media, that they have created such a binary topic that is, if you believe in social justice, then you're against the police, you're against the military, and you're not a patriot of the country.
Yeah, that's insane. That's insane.
It's totally BS to me. I know that it's totally BS to you. And so for establishing the foundation of us having the conversation, I felt it important for you to give that background of where you're coming from.
Yeah, and there's more too, but I don't want to know if we should all get into it and all that stuff because I went to Africa. That was a whole other story. But yeah, the conversation about that. I was a soldier. I was an army. I proudly served. And had I had to go to combat, I would have gone to combat. There's no two ways about it. It's just I would have done that. You can't to say that this is like you can't be an American and you can't be socially conscious. What the hell is this? Then what is that? Then what are we?
Yes.
See, there's artists talking about the roles of artists. I'm going to be working on the cover through heavy metal for another artist, musician, composer, electronics guy in the present moment who's got a comic book out amongst everything else that he's doing, and I'm doing a painting for that. His principal character, I don't know whether I'm supposed to give this away or not, so I'll just talk in roundabout terms.
Yeah, don't.
I'll talk about roundabout terms. But his principal character is chosen the Mandela path. Not there's more than just a binary. There's a third way.
Yes.
There's a third way. Just to have left and right. That's the simplicity. That's the maniacal thing to me. People say, "Oh, are you a liberal? Oh, are you a conservative?" Fuck you. You mean to tell me that that's the only two things that there are in the world? What is the Shakespeare line? This world is filled with such complexity that you have no concept of the magnificent detail and diversity that this all is. to try to boil it down to these two things of left and right, fuck you. Is that strong enough?
Not quite.
It's
You need to amp it up a little bit more.
right. I mean, it's like to deny. I mean, that's. I'm see. I think about this stuff and I have all these clear thoughts, and now I'm just kind of like flummoxed and perplexed. I got to calm myself down so I can express myself better. But to oversimplify,
Totally
conservative, liberal, people have tried to call me that shit, and I say, do not call me. Who the fuck do you think you are trying to label me? Who the goddamn hell do you think you are labeling me? I'll accept two labels: human being and artist. That's it.
So that actually then brings up the topic at hand, the role of the artist in society, right? Now, historically speaking, right, the artist, going back to the cave walls,
Yep.
right, the artist was the storyteller,
Mm-hmm.
the teller of the history, the teller of the tradition,
Right. And also what? The recorder of what's going on in the present moment.
Yes. Yep. And you keep that going down. And I'm sure, again, you can't lay a blanket statement on all of this, but the artists, in my observation, tend to be the more empathetic people in a given society, right?
No, I think
again,
yeah, I think you got a broader view of things. It's like, you can hold.
yeah,
Who was I forgot? I think American writer. I forgot who the hell it was. One of the great American writers said, this the ability to hold two completely opposing views simultaneously in your mind and still retain the ability to function is a sign of intelligence.
yes,
It just doesn't all have to be one way.
yeah.
Why would you insult yourself by saying that you're only going to be one way to start off with? Why would you deny yourself the diversity? As I say, I'm only going to eat apples. I mean, I don't get it. You know what I mean? There's so much complexity and beauty. It's like to celebrate the diversity, man. Jump for joy over it all. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm right there with you. And so, there, and again, obviously we're speaking from as being artists, but as also being commercial artists living in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
right? In this time. So our perspective is obviously grounded right here and right now. It is,
Right.
I'm acknowledging that and saying that obviously what we're talking about is going to be tainted with that kind of bias or whatever.
Yeah.
And that obviously what we're stating and talking about are opinions rather than hard facts.
Of course.
Right? And
Absolutely.
so, with every the people that are watching this, if you have opinions of what we're talking about, please, again, continue to chime in, continue putting your thoughts into this, because that helps spark thoughts and ideas. And a lot of this came up, like, again, with Greg, you being an activist at heart, really, from all the years that I've known you,
Mm-hmm.
that has been the underlying thing that's been there that, again, I feel that most people that are familiar with your work are not familiar with you.
Mm-hmm.
Did that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
They know you for Star Wars or Lord of the Rings,
right.
or
Mm-hmm.
The Marvel masterpieces.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's not that's part of me. That's a very thin surface
but
part.
A very small part.
Very small part. Very little bit of crust. Like the Earth has got that crust and it's got all that stuff underneath.
Yep.
Yeah.
And and over the last year and a half now, or whatever, I've been hearing this come up more and more in your dialogue of feeling like I should be doing something else. Is what I'm making right now what I should be doing? And you're balancing out that, hey, I actually have to work for a living
Absolutely. Yeah.
versus what is my universal role?
Yeah.
Like, what's my job? What was I put here on the
You're starting to break
and
up.
I think
You're broken up. You froze. Yeah. So you died out again, Keith. But oh yeah, that question has been there for me since the days working with Bishop Sheen, actually. And after that trip to South America, to Colombia, when I started to analyze, I mean, as an artist, you got to make a living, and you start to take on jobs of all kinds,
with this kids
down to it.
stuff series that you're doing with 21st.
You faded away. You're fading away, Keith. You're breaking up. Yeah. So, and I've been working at doing all this stuff, which I love. I love doing it. Illustration and either for Marvel or for whoever. It's all fantastic work, and I love it because it's painting, it's creating. You busted up and you faded away, and I tried to keep on talking along the same lines.
Okay. Sorry I cut out there. Again, we've had several weeks of good connection, and then we get into a really intense conversation,
And then it goes away, the connection. The conversation.
the government conspiracy comes in, and dang it.
The wires heat up.
So, yes. So, again, I know you kept going, but just so I could catch back up into the conversation. Again, I apologize to everyone saying, that's been coming up into your conversation again, since it was implanted in your brain with Bishop Sheen.
Right.
The what should I be doing? And where I was going to go with that statement and is that, with this kids stuff series, particularly in these last 3 of where you've brought out the ray guns and the skeletons and things that have underlying symbolism in them.
Mm-hmm.
The paintings are obviously still very much you. They're still very much a Greg Hildebrandt, but I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that we're getting closer and closer and closer to getting the actual mind of the artist coming
Absolutely.
through in the work.
Yes.
That's completely unfiltered, an unfiltered Greg Hildebrandt thought of where we're at and your reflection. You're talking about the synchronicity of the 21st century and the 21st century schizoid man.
Yep.
And the looking at the skeleton that you have there, which is one, it's the structure of life, but it's the symbol of death at the same time.
At the same time.
And then you've got these futuristic ray guns, which again harken back to your past, but they reflect a future.
They represent that. Yes.
Yes. And the smoking guns, these guns have been fired.
Yeah.
They're no longer props or symbols of authority, or like, hey, I have this weapon that could be used. You're showing them across the chest. They've been used.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Shots have been fired. And it's the paintings could be read into, and so
that's
Sorry,
the
I'm going a
difference.
very long way about asking you now. Are you feeling closer
Yeah,
to?
absolutely. To what I'm trying to get at, whatever that is, because it's like peeling away layers. It's like looking into your subconscious. You know, that trap door that opens up and ideas flop out. You know,
Mhm.
uh, that's a kind of a cop out in a way, because I think you can really work at it too, to really consciously apply effort and thought. The danger there, though, is you don't want to become merely polemical only. You know, it's like when you listen to King Crimson and Epitaph or any of the great songs of that prog rock period, is that they transcend time and space. I mean, that thing
Yeah,
was written over 50 years ago, and still, you're like listen like it was written yesterday.
it's very relevant, and the words are relevant.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the ideal to be arrived at in art, I believe, to transcend the moment, to have it be more universal, even though you're going to be dealing with the elements of the moment. But you still, you know, if not, well, then they become political cartoons, and that's totally legit. Don't get me wrong. I mean, political cartoons are powerful and incredible and meaningful and relevant and all that stuff. But I mean, if that's what you're trying to do, then do that, because I've got a pile of those myself that I do, which
Yeah,
I won't necessarily release.
maybe,
But
maybe.
you know, the thing is with painting for me is to try to get beyond that, so that it doesn't only just live only in today, but
Yeah,
that's the effort. And yeah, I'm getting closer at that with this. You know.
great. Now, and again, I mean, I think this is a conversation that we need to carry on
Oh yeah,
to
I
really
agree.
get to really get into the nuts and bolts of it, because I wanted to talk about art more than anything else can influence society,
Oh,
right?
oh my God, it always
Now,
has. Powerful.
particularly film.
That's why all the totalitarian leaders have always taken it over. You talk about
Yeah,
the communists, the Nazis, the fascists, the Francos, the Stalins, the Lenins, the Hitlers, to name somebody. But Mao Zedong, they take it over. They know the power of it.
yeah,
It all has to serve their cause. You
and
can't have stuff floating out there that are having people think on their own. You know.
the uh, music again. Now, again, film. These are the obvious ones, right? Film and music to me
Yeah. Big.
can move people.
Yeah.
Uh, but the visual arts over the past century or whatever have taken on a more subtle effect, but it's nonetheless there,
Yeah. It's there.
right? And but what I have seen again, and this is why I gave the caveat of we're artists in the United States in this time frame, uh, formulating these opinions. I feel that the arts have been taken over, uh, not by like a government conspiracy or cabal or anything like that, but have been boiled down to purely entertainment
Oh,
for the
yeah.
most part.
Yeah. Yeah. Dumbing
Now,
down.
it's always been there to entertain,
Yeah.
right? Film or theater
That
or
it's got
or
to be.
whatever.
It's got to be. And you take a look at the greatest symbolist filmmakers like Fellini or Bergman or Kurosawa. I mean, they were damn entertaining, their movies.
Yep.
But they were loaded with thought provoking ideas.
Yeah, and I'm not I'm not seeing too much coming out these days. Uh, Rather in film, television, music, or even the visual arts, that is extraordinarily thought provoking.
No, they're not. Most of it is stupendously well done technically, but yet
Yes,
they're
incredibly entertaining
Yeah.
incredibly well done.
Beyond that,
Uh,
that's not
shallow.
shallow. You're
Like,
not left with anything. It's out of your mind after you see it. So many
yeah,
of those films, and like I say, I'm not going to knock the film, but they
yeah.
merge
No,
in
I
my
love them.
mind.
I love them. I watch them all the time.
Yeah, me too.
You know,
But I can't even. A lot of them, I can't make a distinct. I'll start. Gene and I will start watching one. Do we see this? And then you're kind of like into it for an hour. But finally, you realize you saw it before because all that stuff, the action. You know what I mean? And I'm not. Don't take me wrong. I'm not knocking action movies. That demands a huge talent to pull that stuff off, complex and everything. But yet, right on the level of thought provoking, right? That you go in, and that's what I think this kind of thing is for me, is to get people to view it, to see it, to think, to kind of like go into their own minds and analyze, well, what's there, to help create the story themselves, even, as opposed to just it being only just there on the screen or in a book or on a page, but
yes.
you become part of the creator in a way to take into it,
Yeah. And so, again, and as we continue this conversation, and again, rolling into next week, we can maybe get started right off the bat. Um, I would like to see some form of reprise in the arts of something that is thought provoking and challenging, because I feel that where we are right now as a society is that
You've disappeared. Keith has gone away again due to the wires are heated up and starting to melt, I believe. In any event, it's after 5, so uh, I think I agree with Keith that the conversation that we're trying to get into here demands more than an hour. I think we'll carry this on next week and maybe even longer. And with
Someone carrying this on with you, or
now I'm talking right now
just
to
the two of you?
Keith has disappeared. He may be coming back in a moment. I hope. I don't want to leave until he comes back on again.
I see.
But we were having a nice conversation about the art, its position in terms of its relevance in the modern world. And art that has you think and start to like
Don't look at me.
like the imagery. Well, you're there, and I'm talking to you now.
I know.
I'm just explaining what Keith and I were talking about, and so that
Is anybody asking you a question?
yeah, there were some technical questions that were being asked. So I'm not sure. Hopefully, Keith is going to be coming back right away. I'm not sure.
No, I'm trying to see. Excuse me. Let's see what do you got going on here. Okay, everybody, how you can see the bottom of me. Okay.
See if there's any questions there. Can you see?
Some good thought provoking. There he
There's
is.
Keith.
Hello, Keith.
We're
hi Gene, I'm back.
plan 9 from outer space.
I think now I might have to go into it's the government conspiracy, and that anytime I start to say something, I freeze up and everything.
Everything
all
goes.
loud.
I was just trying to read and see if there was anybody chatting while you weren't there that we could answer their question. I don't know.
But we
Maybe.
were talking about
What is the last thing you heard from me, Rick?
Oh my God, we were talking about that the extending this conversation, that it's something that we'll
Yes.
continue to do. It's just it's too good, it's too serious, and I'm all for it. I mean, and after all, this is our show, so we can do it the hell ever we want. And I believe that we should extend this for sure. It's something that I want to get something out of. I'm just not. I just don't want to offer stuff. I want people to talk back to me.
Yes. And okay, so what I was saying, if you already heard this, forgive me, was that I would like to see a reprise in the arts of work that is thought provoking and challenging. That because as a society, we are avid consumers.
Yeah.
That is what we do. We consume. But we have put ourselves into a position, and I speak as we as a general term, because obviously not everybody, but in that general term, um, we've allowed our consumption to go down to these talking heads, and everything has been boiled to boiling. Like these are the bullet points.
Yeah.
Here are the bullet points, and they're this, this, and this, and those we allow those to formulate our opinions
Right.
for us.
Right.
And if I agree with this, then I have to agree with this, and this. When I don't think in reality people truly live that way, or but they will echo it and they will parrot it, and it's really unfortunate. And you started us off with a King Crimson quote, and maybe I'll close us down with another prog musician quote from Frank Zappa, right? Which
Yeah.
is oh shoot, I had the quote in my head and now I just totally
That happens,
lost
man.
it. Oh yeah, I'm a tool of the government and industry too. I'm destined to rule and to regulate you. I'm the best you can get. Have you guessed me yet? I'm the slime oozing out of your TV set.
Oh, nice. I like that.
Fantastic. See,
Wow.
That's my Zappa
Yeah.
quote.
I don't know. Where is, like I say, I don't watch that. We watch movies a lot, but I don't know. Is there anything moving into those zones of this kind of
Commercial TV?
well, commercial TV and commercial film that is really on that level of really the principal purpose of it is, well, thought provoking. It's got to entertain. This we know. The ancient Greek idea was that, the ultimate objective was to have you be transformed at the end of the play. But it has to be entertaining. It has to be entertaining. There's no two ways about that. But that whole world of
Transformation,
and we were talking about the action movies, which are fantastic, incredibly well done. We love them. We watch them. But I mean,
over and over.
Over and over. But, I remember watching one not too long ago, and I'm counting how long each take is on the screen. It was like 1 second, 2 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds. I mean, there's no long. You're sitting there watching stuff, and people talk and discuss. The shit's going on, in that sense. It's like Machine Gun, And granted, I like fast cutting. I used it myself on some of the films I made for Bishop Sheen. Very fast, single frame, 2 frame cuts. But not. It can't just all be that.
Yeah.
Have
you seen Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory with Gene Wilder?
Oh yeah, 100 times.
Of course.
Right. Yes. There's no way that that walk scene when he introduces himself to everybody for the first time and just slowly walks.
Right.
And he gets his cane caught.
Right.
Gets his cane caught. Yes. Yeah.
No.
Oh.
I mean, if you take some of George Stevens' movies, a giant masterpiece, his long take and a long shot.
How did you get on this subject?
We're talking about thought-provoking as opposed to only just action. You know what I mean? Things that provoke thought.
I was just curious. Yeah. I wasn't listening in.
Anyway.
Keith, are you sitting in front of a sun lamp?
Yeah, which last week when the storm came through, I realized that I was plunged into darkness for like the last half of the stream.
Oh, well.
And now the sun has peeked through the trees and I'm blasted out.
I'm telling you, you look like you're so overexposed. It's not even funny. But God, you're starting to look like the skeleton in the background.
But no, we talked about the possibility of going on with these kinds of conversations. Like,
I think
carry this on next week.
I do. I think you should. But I think now you should say goodnight. Because believe it or not, we have an international Zoom call coming up that we need to get to.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, go. Yeah, good luck on your call this evening, Greg and Gene. And yes, 1.6 shooter. Mind Candy is easier for sure. And yeah, it's just easier to veg out.
Yeah, it is easier to veg out. And you got to do that. But it's
It's easier to veg out than what?
to think.
Think.
And
But-
who said that?
Well, one 6-shooter said that mind candy is easier,
One
and then
6
I
shooter.
said that it's easier to veg out than to think.
Oh,
Yeah.
So Keith
Well,
said that.
The thing is, though,
Okay.
there's a lot of fun in thinking.
Well, there's a
The-
lot of knowledge in it. It may
the-
not be fun, but
the-
there's a whole lot of knowledge in
there's-
thinking. So, Greg, it's
There's
5:12.
also
Well, wait a minute.
there's also
Hey.
a lot of pain.
We really have to go.
We have to go. Okay.
We really-
Okay.
Okay.
We'll continue.
I'm sorry. We
No,
really
okay,
have
but-
to go. Any other night, I'd
Keith-
say no, but I got an Australian Zoom,
Keith is
so
going
we
to close
really
out
have to go.
as he.
So, Keith, say goodnight.
All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We thank you for the very lively chat that was going on. Please tune in again next week. We're going to continue this conversation. We're going to jump straight into it. But I felt that it was very important to get Greg's background on how he has gotten into advocacy and things of that nature. And so, yeah, tune in again. Thank you for the conversation. Again, as always, to check out more of Greg's art, to buy his products, 10 signs, books, you name it, go to spiderwebart.com. The link is down there in the bottom left-hand side of your screen. If you like what we do, hit the like button, subscribe button, share it, talk about it, leave comments. We appreciate it all. So everybody have a great night, and I'll talk to you later, Greg.
Yeah, man. Take it easy. Thanks a
Good
lot.
night.